Hello everybody and welcome back to the Midnight Run. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Retribution Paladin. My Paladin sitting before you, of course. Same Paladin I used in the first video for tanking. This is how he looks when he's wielding the Ashbringer. Flaming. Pretty awesome. Pretty sweet. Still going with the gold color. I just can't get away with it. Get away from it, I should say. Let's dive right in, alright? As you can see, my bars down here are pretty busy. I usually put major cooldowns up here on the top, so I have Eye for an Eye for when I'm in trouble, Shield of Vengeance, Crusade, which is, my own personal kind of mini lust for battling. Try to keep that up as much as possible. It's going to help you out a lot. I do have Killjaden's Burning Wish, which adds to my DPS rotation. Right here, the number 4 slot. I'm running Execution Sentence, which I find helpful. Divine Storm, Templar's Verdict, Divine Hammer, Zeal down here in the W spot, Judgment right here, and Wake of Ashes right here to always get what you need to get. Currently my guild is actually kind of active right now, so you might see some chat down at the bottom. Just disregard. Nothing real interesting going on there. Okay, so let me pull up the talent page. You'll see I'm in the Retribution Spec. Switch over to the talents. As I was saying, I run the Execution Sentence over Final Verdict and Consecration. Now the Consecration is pretty cool. It does, AoE damage, but I feel like I don't need any more help doing AoE damage because that's where the majority of my DPS comes from. I took Executioner Sentence more so because of the slow hammerfall. It does a ton of damage, 1 million holy damage after 5.6 seconds, so that's quite a bit. Working it into the rotation can be a little difficult in the sense that it still costs 3 holy power, and it kind of like, if the target dies before the hammer gets down there, then you lose out on that DPS. I like it. I prefer that for the trade-off. Final Verdict, you can also increase the damage done by the Templar's Verdict, by 20%, and the damage done by Divine Storm by 10%. Now, I could do this, and it would give me more AoE damage, which would be good, but I still find myself lacking in single target damage, and while the 20% bonus to Templar's Verdict is good, I still have to have 3 holy power. It would equate to each cast of this getting about 100,000, a little less than 100,000 extra damage. And maybe on crits it would definitely help a little bit more, but I just don't personally find the benefit worth it in my case. In the second row, we are running Zeal for the melee. Replacing Crusader Strike. I like this because of specifically the melee attacks spreading to other targets. Definitely gives me a bonus for AoE. It does limit my basically the other two are let's say abilities that would buff my single target damage, which I probably will look into eventually. I just haven't done it, more so because this is more my off spec. It's really kind of my third spec. I play Holy Spec maybe slightly more, so I don't really, but neither one of those specs has as many artifact points, weapon points, as my tanking set, of course. But I do like to show off what I can do with what I've got so far. And right now, in a good AoE with all my cooldowns, I can hit about 4.5 million DPS for a bursted amount of time. On average, on average, in a group setting where you're pulling trash mobs one after the other, I'm running about 1 million DPS, roughly. Sometimes it's a bit lower, sometimes it's 1.5 or 1.8 million because of, the way mobs die, etc. That sort of thing. So it really kind of fluctuates, but I'm right in that, at least minimum 800k range to about 1.5 million range all the time, which I find perfectly acceptable for the groups that I run with. And, I'm not going to be top in the charts all the time, but I'm definitely going to spike up there. You're going to see me. Okay, so looking back on the third row here, we got Greater Judgment. Judgment ability hits 2 additional nearby enemies and always deals a critical strike against targets above 50% health. Now, this would be really good on boss fights, and I have to admit that I should be taking this over Zeal for boss fights specifically, but I'm really just too lazy to change it. Then we got down here in the 45 row, I take Blinding Light because it's AoE. and it disorients a bunch of things at once, which can be really helpful for a lot of multiple caster packs, and just taking some damage off of you or allies when you need it immediately. So it really helps me be a more utility-focused paladin as opposed to just being tunneling on one thing or not. Now, we also have Fist of Justice, which each Holy Power spent reduces the remaining cooldown of Hammer of Justice, which is, of course, the stun. Don't really need that. I don't find myself needing to use Hammer of Justice all that often. There could definitely be some niche situations where it would help, especially when you're talking about maybe raging or bolstering, where the last guy is just real big and you just need to like smash him, stun him so that we can get free DPS on him, etc. And then you have Repentance, which is the big, 1.5 second or 1.36 second cast. And basically it's the same type of thing as like a sap or whatever. It's like you just stun them, they sit there and contemplate for a while. And they're incapacitated. So it's good for moving around, but really not so useful in like a dungeon situation, aside from very specific uses. Now, these three in the 60 row are definitely contentious, I would say. People definitely have different opinions on what is and what shouldn't be taken. The Blade of Justice critical strikes now deal 3 times normal damage. Now, that is very good if you have high crit. I have 35% crit, which could be higher. It's pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. I don't feel like I'd get enough value out of that because it hits 1 time but does 3 times normal damage if it crits, which is not always the case. Now, Blade of Wrath, my auto attacks also have a chance to reset the cooldowns of Blade of Justice. Well, it's... Wow. I guess Zeal replaces Blade of Justice? Is that what that is? I have no idea. I don't even know. Or is it... Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm not taking it either way. Blade of Wrath, cause auto attacks... It's too subjective, because they have a chance. I don't know what that chance is, so I'm not going to take it. I tend to rely, in my playstyle even, that anything that just says it has a chance is not really something you can rely upon for consistency. It means that once in a while it's going to happen, and when it happens, great, but when it doesn't happen, it's real bad, and you lose out on all the benefits of another talent if it takes too long for it to reset. So I choose Divine Hammer, which Divine Hammer replaces Blade of Justice. Duh. So I choose Divine Hammer because it spins around me, and it does damage, 73,000 damage, every 1.6 seconds for 9.6 seconds. So it's gonna rotate off 6 times. So 6 times 73,000 is about 450,000 or so. 450,000 damage if I hit, the enemy with all 6 rotations. The greatest part about it, though, is that it hits enemies within 8 yards. So it hits everybody. So it's a nice big AoE, lasts for 9.6 seconds. The cooldown basically matches the cooldown matches the length of it, so I can pretty much just spam it and keep it active all the time. It's a huge DPS boost. I don't have any randomness waiting for it. I can just hit it, and it does damage consistently. Good for single target, way better for multi-target, obviously. Another thing that I could possibly switch out, but I don't really raid at the highest level, so it's not really something I'll be doing. I'm not going to be talent swapping between trash and the boss and boss to boss and stuff like that. I just don't really do that. I try to pick what's best in a general setting and just kind of work around it. Like if it's not the greatest all the time, that's fine. But in certain situations, it's going to be awesome. Now at 75, we have Justicar's Vengeance, weapon strike that deals 505,000 damage and restores health equal to the damage done, but it costs 5 holy power. When it's used against a stun target, it deals 100% additional damage and healing. That's really good for solo content, because you can I'll deliberately stack up 5 and then I'll hit them with this and I'll heal for a bunch, or I'll stun them and then I'll hit them for this, especially considering I'm a Tauren Paladin and I can get a stun every minute or so, 1.5 minutes with War Stomp. So I definitely have the tools to make that work in a functional setting, but to me it's really only good in it's not going to be good in a dungeon, because you're not going to have time to literally stack up 5 things. You can't stun bosses, so it's not useful there. Like, stun a random enemy, then hit them to try and heal yourself. You're gonna be dead by then if you're in that much trouble. So it's really not that useful, in my opinion. In the middle tier, we have Eye for an Eye. Reduces physical damage you take by 55% and instantly counterattacks any enemy that strikes you in melee combat for 164,000 physical damage, and it lasts 10 seconds. It's good to have a defensive cooldown as a Retribution Paladin. I mean, we do have a full suite of cooldowns that we could use. I mean, Blessing and Protection is still a thing, Divine Shield is still a thing, so on and so forth. Now, it doesn't, but this, I feel like I can hit it every minute. I'm going to still keep my DPS up if I'm getting attacked by multiple things, and I really shouldn't be getting attacked by multiple things in a dungeon setting, but it does happen occasionally. And it also reduces the damage so that the tank can regain aggro, or if like a tank needs a battle res or something like that. So it gives me some survivability while I wait for the tank to reestablish himself. Now, the third one, Word of Glory, is this is really good, especially because I don't have Word of Glory as a Retribution Paladin. So when you get this, it's kind of like, oh, I can heal myself almost as much as a tank can all the time, because I can heal yourself and up to 5 friendly targets for 500,000 within 15 yards. It's got a 1 minute recharge. It's got 2 charges. It's not quite as useful as the one that tanks get, which is fine, but it definitely, the ability to heal yourself and up to 5 friendly targets definitely makes it good in situations where you know you're going to be taking a lot of damage. When you're maybe not in combat, something like Grievous, where you need to everybody just needs to get up above that 90% threshold to reset the counter stacks. That can save a whole party in one of those mythic dungeons. Definitely something to consider if you find yourself in a party who has either short on heals or doesn't have a healer. If you're running 4 DPS in a tank, this is a great way to heal the tank, heal everybody in the party, you know, keep them a little bit healthy so you guys can burn through those mobs a little faster, so you don't have to stop and regenerate, or, you know, have the, you know, Paladin tank healer or the Paladin Retribution healer try to heal everybody with Flash of Light and see where that gets you. You're going to run out of mana real quick. So Word of Glory definitely would be a good thing if you're finding yourself in a situation where you could use a little extra healing for the whole party. Probably not as useful in a raid situation, though it definitely could be. If you're spamming it on yourself, you're going to heal the people around you, which could put some healing on the tank, which could lessen the stress on the healers a little bit. Now, down in the 90 row, we have Divine Intervention, which is the one I take. It reduces the Divine Shield cooldown by 20%. That's a huge buff already. Any attack which would kill you instantly reduces you to 20% of your maximum health and triggers Divine Shield. Divine Shield, if it's on cooldown, this can't work. So basically, Divine Shield becomes, you use it in one of 2 ways. You either never use it because you don't want to run the risk of having your Divine Intervention be on cooldown when you really need it, or you try to use it all the time and like just, you know, because it's got a 20% less cooldown, you hope to get through the cooldown as fast as you can. I took that one. I liked the utility of it, plus the like last minute survivability. It's definitely saved me in a few situations. I want to try out some of these other talents. Like we have Cavalier, which Divine Steed has 2 charges. That's more of a comfort thing for me. My tank has Cavalier, so I use it all the time, and having 2 charges is nice. So when I'm not tanking, it's a little annoying. Judgment of Light. Judgment now applies Judgment of Light to the target, causing the next 40 successful attacks against the target to heal the attacker for 8,300 health. Like, this is good, but it's 40 attacks, and the amount of healing is insignificant. I mean, you're talking 8,000 health for each attack that they do, and 40 attacks, it's over. In a 5-man group, that's going to last 5 seconds, and each player is going to heal maybe 40,000. My health pool is like a ton. It's like 4.7 million in DPS Spec. 40,000 is like 1% of my health, I think. Like, it's low. It's really low. So that's not really worth it. Like, that's a drop in the bucket comparatively to anything else. So I take Divine Intervention. You know, In the last row, we have Divine Purpose. Holy Power spending abilities have a 20% chance to make your next Holy Power spending ability free. Very interesting, very situational, but I go back to the have a 20% chance. Well, at least I know that chance 1 in 5. 1 in 5 of my Holy Power spending abilities have a 20% chance to make your next Holy Power spending ability free. So, in order for me to make 5 Holy Spending Power attacks, I need to fill my Holy Power up 2.5 times. To do that would require me to use Divine Hammer and Zeal twice. Zeal twice and Divine Hammer. And that might heal me. That might push me up to 5 because, sometimes you get that crit from your weapon and, it allows you to, get an extra one in there. So I have to fill that up. Then I have to hit Wake of Ashes. And in the meantime, I have to hit 3 abilities, 2 abilities up here. And so I will have had to have hit about 6 to 8 abilities to fill my Holy Power up twice. Using twice, that means I'm going to get 4 abilities out of it, maybe. If at that point I don't get a crit and get a free Holy Power ability, I then have basically wasted that rotation for damage-wise, because that free one is where you're making up the damage difference between the next talent, which is Crusade. Now, Crusade has a 2-minute cooldown, which is not great. I mean, it could be a little lower. I would love it if it was 1.5 minutes. That'd be even better. And I think it used to stack up higher, but don't quote me on that. I thought it stacked to 20, but I guess not. Not anymore anyway. That's what the tooltip says, is 15. So increases your damage and haste by 3% for 28 seconds. That's a long time, 28 seconds. It's almost as long as Lust. Each Holy Power spent during Crusade increases the damage and haste by an additional 3%. So, if I hit Crusade when I have a full suite of Holy Power spender abilities, I'm getting 3% immediately when I hit the Crusade. I'll cast 2 Holy Power spender abilities. That'll push it up to 9%. I will then use Ashes, Wake of Ashes, I believe? Yeah, Wake of Ashes to regenerate all of the Holy Power that I have now spent. I will use 2 more Holy Power spending abilities. That will put me up to 16%. Most likely, the amount of time that has gone down, because I've now hit 5 abilities with 1.5 second each time, that's about 9 seconds. I'll still have 19 seconds left, and I will have stacked this up to 12 already. One more, is it one more stack? Oh, no. That's only 4 stacks. No, each Holy Power spent. So I will have spent 10 Holy Power, which means I'll get 10 stacks. One more little rotation, basically 5 more Holy Power spent, which will take maybe another 5 seconds or so. That's going to put me up at about, between 18 and 20 seconds of abilities to stack it to full. I will then have 10 seconds of essentially 45% increased damage and increased haste. Which is really, really good. And if you save that for the boss, can really make a difference, even if you're not really solo target spec'd. So that's why I take Crusade. I find that it's probably the best one on here, without a doubt, really. And it replaces Avenging Wrath, which is fine. Now, the last one over here we have is Holy Wrath. Holy Wrath deals 200% of your missing health in holy damage to 4 nearby enemies, up to 120% of your maximum health. Deals 35% of missing health against enemy players. That sounds really bad. I mean, it does sound like an execution style thing, but it's got a 3-minute cooldown. In what world am I going to be surrounded by enemies, and use that, and then be able to use it again regularly? 3 minutes, it's a minute longer than Crusade, and I get a one-time use out of it. Deals 200% of my missing health. So I have to be low health. And it's why? Why do I have to be low health to use this? That doesn't make any sense. My whole point is to stay healthy. If I'm at low health and I'm using this, I'm most likely dying right afterwards if it doesn't kill anything. So in my mind, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense at all to use that one. Especially, maybe when you're soloing, I could see it. But not really so much in a group setting or a raid setting. Now, so basically that's all the talents that I would use, and basically the breakdown of what goes on here. I would like to say that the Retribution Paladin in my head feels, when you play it, a little bit like you don't have enough buttons. You'll feel like you don't have enough rotational utility. You'll feel very like, I gotta do this, and then I have to do this. I have to generate holy power, and then I have to spend it. And like, that's just how it works. I mean, it really is a two-part cycle. Generate, spend, generate, spend. The efficiency at which you generate holy power and the efficiency at which you use your holy power spending abilities makes a huge difference in your DPS. If you mismanage your zeal stacks, or if you mismanage your Wake of Ashes, your DPS will go down. Like, you never want to use Wake of Ashes when you have any holy power, if you can avoid it. I mean, sometimes you do and you end up doing it anyway, but you want to spend the holy power you have and then use this, and then immediately you want to hit Judgment, because Judgment increases the damage your holy power spending abilities do for 8 seconds. So you want to hit Wake of Ashes, then you want to hit Judgment, and then you want to hit the appropriate button in the spending tree. Is it multi-target? You want to hit Divine Storm. Is it the beginning of the fight in a solo target? You want to hit Execution Sentence. Any other time that's not those two situations, you want to hit Templar's Verdict. It's obviously 3 holy power, but it's definitely the most powerful instant, like, boom, 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 done. So yeah, it's basically, it sounds simple, but it's not to do well. Like, it sounds easy to just be like, oh, you just make holy power and then you spend holy power, and it just doesn't really work that way. And the cooldowns don't really match up to be like a really easy flow to manage, because you'll have a lot of abilities that, like, hey, I triggered an extra holy power. That means I can spend some holy power where I normally wouldn't. Hey, I don't have enough holy power, but I need to space out these zeal charges so that they don't, so it's not a peak and a valley, that it's more consistent. It won't feel like you can do that. It won't feel like you can do that for a little while until you start getting some decent active trinkets. Now, I do happen to have Killjaden's Burning Wish, which is one of the best DPS trinkets for AoE in my mind and in what I've witnessed so far. So the biggest thing is that this ability, when you're about to pull, you can hit this ability before the pull has even happened, because it takes time for this to travel to the enemy, and it will not aggro until it gets to the enemy. So if your tank is pulling, and say they've pull timer, you can go at like 3 seconds and pop this immediately, which will save you a global cooldown for when the fight actually starts and give you a nice little boost. And then as it travels to the boss, you're running up, whatever, the tank will get there and hit the boss, and then this will hit and do a bunch of damage. But the tank should still remain the primary aggro target, because you're melee. You can't really get there. So it's going to do a bunch of damage initially, but you'll be fine. Not going to be a big deal either way. So yeah, that's basically it. That's my tip for for how to start a fight as a Retribution Paladin, is hit that and run in after the tank. If you don't have that, then you want to try and buff yourself up as much as you can, and just kind of go in as quickly behind the tank as you possibly can. Get there as soon as you can. Generate your stuff. Like, what I like to do is I like to Judgment, then I'll hit. Actually, I shouldn't Judgment, but I do anyway. But like, if you want to go up there, you go up there. You'd hit Zeal. You'd build to 5. You'd build to 5 Holy Power. Then you hit Crusade. Then you spend your Holy Power. Then you hit Wake of Ashes. Then you hit Judgment. Then you spend your Holy Power again. Okay, that'll give you, like 4 to 7. You'll be spending 10 holy power in the matter of 4 seconds, which is going to really kick into gear that Crusade. And if you buff yourself with the Potion of Prolonged Power, which is all the rage, then you'll have this double craziness going on. It's a really big fight opener, really spikes up your DPS, really puts you into a good spot. Also, you definitely want to hit Potion of Prolonged Power before the pull starts so that you can hit it again mid-fight. Just so you know. Alright guys, well that's going to do it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content in the future. We're going to be coming at you with a ton of new videos, as many as I can possibly get done over my vacation. I'm going to do, and hopefully we can get enough content to last us a good amount of time before I have to, like, you know, start rationing it out. But this is obviously the second video in the Paladin series. There will be one more coming up, but the Holy Paladin, I got some interesting thoughts on that. You're going to love to hear it if you're a Holy Paladin, I think. Well, I love to hear it, but I love to hear myself talk, so that's all good. Anyway, you guys have a good day, and I will catch you on the next Midnight Run.